For the final time in the 2024 playoffs, you're here with the Leafscast as the Leafs have just lost Game 7 to the Boston Bruins again.
I'm glad that you brought up and mentioned that this is the end of the 2024 playoff season, because otherwise our viewers might be confused with you just saying the Leafs have been eliminated in Game 7 by Boston. It's basically our favorite thing to do.
Seeming to be a trend.
Leaf season is over. I suspect a lot more than just the Leaf season is over for the Maple Leafs, and maybe we'll get into all that, but what did you guys think of the game? The Leafs lose 2-1 in an overtime game.
Well, I mean, like,
in Boston.
Off the top, like, craziness of the lineup. Joseph Woll, the one savior that got us here. Mystery injury. Man, I can't wait to see this injury thing, to see what the heck was going on with all our guys. Mm-hmm. If it's anything less than a broken back, I don't know.
And this news comes out with, I want to say, like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours before the game, that Joe Woll is apparently injured or sick or something and is not going to play. So I wasn't actually really online before the game. We have zero intel as to why he didn't play.
Nope.
Correct?
For all we know, he tripped getting on the bus.
Yep.
And so Samsonov comes in. Obviously, Joe Woll, a huge part of why the Maple Leafs won the two games that got them to get into Game 7. I'm not going to say Samsonov played poorly tonight. I don't think Samsonov's the reason the Leafs lost tonight. So, but it's definitely a factor added to maybe the stress, right, surrounding the game. But, it does tie into just a series of frustrations this entire playoff run where you've got Auston Matthews, or William Nylander, and now Joe Woll all mysteriously missing just such important games with essentially no intel as to what's going on.
I don't care much for talking about this game and how, because we played fine this game. We played this exact same way we played the previous two games, which resulted in us winning, and the only thing that got us to Game 7 is still that defensive, stingy hockey. It was looking like it was going to be 0-0 going into overtime until finally things opened up late in the third. The problem with the Leafs is you backed yourself into this position where you go down 3-1 in the series. Now you have to get every lucky bounce for 3 consecutive games or you're not going to win. And they got it for 2 games. They got the bounces for 2 games, which got them to Game 7. But you can't all of a sudden start saying that, the Leafs deserve to win this series when, because they couldn't get the consecutive bounce for a 3rd game in a row. And let's not kid ourselves. The Boston Bruins were the easiest playoff opponent we were going to face in the playoffs this season. Florida's better. Then the Rangers of Carolina are better than they are. And then it's Vegas or Colorado or Edmonton in the final. We were never going to win the Stanley Cup this year. It would have been so fun to beat Boston. And we didn't do it. So the way I see it, I'm looking back at this season, we were not close. It was a failure of a season. We were not close to winning the Stanley Cup. That's where I'm at.
And you can't help but think back to, what was it, Game 4 we didn't show up?
Yep.
Yeah, Game 4 where it's they just didn't show up. Ridiculous. The fact that we've been in this series is just once again, the Leafs try and find the maximum source of pain. How many of us, we called it. Leafs win Game 5 and 6. Matthew comes back for Game 7. Done. Here we are, I know we chalk them and say, oh, what a good defensive performance from the Leafs. You scored 1 goal this game. 2 goals in the past last games. It's what is this team? Anyway, let's just fire Keith into the sun. I'm done talking about him. He's done.
It was 11 goals, I think. 11 goals over 7 games. I mean, we talk about defensive hockey, and I'm probably dumb. I mean, last pod, I'm out here, the Leafs had a formula that was able to work to win them these past couple games. But the teams that play defensive hockey average more than 1 goal or 1.5 goals a game in the playoffs. And the Maple Leafs, I don't know if it would have been different against Boston. I don't really doubt that Jeremy Swayman's the best goaltender that's in the playoffs right now. But it's atrocious. We went into the overtime here, and I'm so nervous because we watched 60 minutes of the Maple Leafs, and I can look up and down at the roster and say who's going to score an overtime goal here and who isn't. And I can name maybe two guys on the whole team that it felt like tonight were capable of scoring an overtime goal, and that's it. Like because of what we saw them do this entire playoff run offensively. I mean, Leafs had 2 power plays tonight. Nothing. Not even.
Graceful.
Not even like close.
Like Joel Edmondson was probably one of the biggest offensive threats on the Leafs. Just absolutely embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing by that team.
I'm sorry if this is going to make you more angry, Tim, but after watching the previous 3 games, I'm thinking Sheldon Keefe will be our coach again for next year's season.
No, we won't. No,
he will be, because I'll tell you why.
Won't.
Because I think exactly how these previous 3 games have gone is exactly how Brad Treliving wants our team to be built. He's going to trade for more big defensemen, more guys who can't score and can't produce offense, and we're going to become a big, rugged blue line team that might capitalize on the odd goal here or there. And I think exactly the way Sheldon Keefe coached our team the last few games is what Brad's looking for, and he's not going to fire him. That's what I think. I'm not saying that's what I want. It's clear to me that this team is worse than last year, that we got less close to winning a cup than last year, and we're on the trajectory downwards, and we're going to continue that way.
Sheldon Keefe will be gone. This is it. The only reason Sheldon Keefe was not gone is because Brad he's got however many lives. He's not a cat. He's got 3 lives, and you cash out the first life. That's fire your coach, right? And that's what's happening now. The GM picks the coach. Mike Babcock didn't work out for a lot of reasons.
The GM did pick the coach. He gave Keefe an extension. He extended Keefe. Brad picked Keefe.
You do that to the Leafs got plenty of money to throw around for extensions, and you're trying to keep that away from the media and the drama around it. And no, this has to be the end of Sheldon Keefe. I mean, you look up and down the roster. John Tavares isn't going anywhere. Auston Matthews isn't going anywhere. William Nylander isn't going anywhere.
There's a lot of a no-move clause. People throw his name around in trades. It means nothing. He's not going anywhere. He's either walking next summer, or Brad's going to trade him for a couple 35-year-olds like he traded to Kachuk for and tank the franchise.
Well, okay, but like a couple 35-year-olds might have been better than Mitch Marner here, because you talk about
did he
Joel
play,
Edmondson being an offensive.
I don't remember seeing him in Game 7. Did he do anything?
I mean, he has a nice chance down the slot, and he's, I don't know, maybe 6 feet from the net. And Bertuzzi's in front of him, ready for a rebound. And what does he do? Kicks it outside to Joel Edmondson, who, takes 3 to 5 business days to get a wrist shot off right into Jeremy Swayman's belly. And that's the end. And that was Mitch Marner in this playoffs, this series. The top line that Auston Matthews did not get on tonight did not thrive because Mitch Marner was on it. It has to be Sheldon Keefe that goes. I mean, sure, I could be wrong, because I thought it would have been last time, but I think Brad Treliving is looking out for himself, and I think it's best for the Leafs. I think it's best for Brad Treliving that Sheldon Keefe is done. I mean, how do you drive a Lamborghini like the Maple Leafs offensive roster and muster up 11 goals?
Excuse me, a Lamborghini? Did
games?
You see this team? This team's barely
I'm
a
talking
Hyundai.
about, but. Yeah, but we're talking about Mitch Marner sucked. He had 85 points in the regular season. Auston Matthews had 100. William Nylander had 100, and Willie was fine. But I'm saying I don't know that I've ever even seen a team go 7 games, score as few goals as the Maple Leafs did here. This is the worst that we've looked offensively, and Boston's far from the best defensive team that we've played in the playoffs.
But that's what I'm saying. Because it could have gone either way. We could have won this game, and we'd be sitting here praising the Maple Leafs. But, I'm looking forward to watching the Boston Bruins get steamrolled by Florida next round, because Florida's a way better team, and they probably would have steamrolled us. They're better offensively. They're better defensively. We would have got fewer goals. They would have got more goals against us, and we would have bounced in 4 or 5 again. It's just we were not close. This is not the team that's going to get us over the hump. There needs to be changes. Tim's right. There can't be changes. There's no way Marner's going to say, yes, please trade me out of my hometown team. He wants to be here.
You could see that.
No. He's going to stay. You
think he wants to be here?
Of course.
You think he's still dying to be here? No. He looked pretty. I mean, I know he just lost a game. He looked pretty down I would not be surprised
I
if he
would
doesn't
think
want to be here.
so.
John Tavares isn't going anywhere. He's got his family, a foundation, a home. He moved his whole, family here. He's not going anywhere. Mitch Marner could go
All of
somewhere.
the Leafs core pieces have full no move trade clauses. So if they all want to stay and play in Leafland, they're all going to stay. So it's not even in Brad's hands. Like, we'll see what they do. But, like, what? Marner's going to say, trade me to Utah? Like, what?
Well, so then at that
To a
point, I
real
mean,
team.
you then that's another argument for why you have to move on from Sheldon Keefe. Because I can get excited about Mitch Marner as a Maple Leaf next season.
Moving on from Sheldon Keefe's not even a discussion. It's ridiculous you even bring it up, Ryan. This guy is lost in the first round or second round. He's continually not gotten the best out of our players. He needs to be fired based on the power play alone. Him and Guy Boucher should never work in the league again based on
You know what,
that.
Tim? You're not
Even though it's like he's
wrong.
gonna go
The
coach
power
Pittsburgh
play
probably.
is just like that should be enough to get a coach fired by themselves. Like, if there's one,
I was ready to fire him
Well-
mid-series. It's ridiculous.
Because even though I say Leafs score 11 goals over 7 games, Boston had what, probably like 16 or something? Like, not a ton either, right? But Boston had probably like 4 or 5 of those on the power play. Leafs got 1.
yep.
Like, think about in a series that was as tight as this one, if the Leafs had an average power play. Like, the Boston Bruins were trotting out Pat Maroon on their power play. Like,
Better than us.
And we can't do better than that? Come on. Yeah. I hate to just dismiss the point, but I don't see a world where Sheldon Keefe can keep his job. I don't want him to. I didn't want him to last season. I don't remember what I said at last Game 7, or last elimination pod or whatever, but it was that. It was Sheldon Keefe should be fired, and you get somebody else in here, and you see how it works. It's what Boston did when they were still a good team. They fired their coach, bring in Jim Montgomery, and they're a better team. Or, I don't know, they're still a good team. Whatever. Like,
If
Come
I
on.
were to start
It's-
thinking about, like,
it's-
here's the number one reason why the Maple Leafs lost this round, and I'd go beyond that and say why the Maple Leafs did not have a roster that was capable of winning the Stanley Cup. Like, to me, it doesn't even get to Keefe. It just goes to Brad and poor personnel. Like, our power play is a super mystery. That one I say you could put on Keefe, but our power play was that's what I'm talking about. But the penalty kill, like, our team sucks. Like, we have no one out there. The fact that we held Boston to 1 or 2 goals to the last 3 games, I think is a miracle. If anything, that should be praise on Sheldon Keefe, because Brad Treliving did not build this team in a way that could play defensive hockey like that, and somehow we did it. And maybe we did it at the expense of all offense whatsoever. I don't know. Maybe you could even just say that it was a little bit of bad luck with 3 games without Nylander, 3 games without Matthews. We finally get a miracle goaltender, and then he's out. Like, that's definitely part of it, but I don't know.
I don't know. Like I guess Nylander gets off the hook for scoring literally the only one that scored in the last 2 games. All the other big guys, ridiculous. Once again, not big name players.
I mean,
game
it's hard.
players. Like, we have Matthew Nyes who shows up, William Nylander who shows up sometimes. So many icing sites. It was infuriating. If that guy didn't score a goal, he'd be.
I think you're a little rash in judgment there. I thought John Tavares had a solid series. Like, I think that he exceeded my expectations throughout this series, even if he wasn't putting up the goals. I thought he was fine. And Matthews, who knows what he had at the end there. Like, he obviously stole game 2, and he was in this game, but who knows what percent he was at. If you want to put the blame on one of our core pieces, like, I mean, you guys have both been saying it's Mitch Marner. Like, it seems as clear as day can be that Sheldon Keefe is not a playoff coach. At least, I don't know. We'll see about that. Mitch Marner is not a playoff player. He's not the guy who's going to get it done. And maybe he can get it done on another team under another coach or something, but I think if I'm ready to close the book on someone, it's unfortunately Mitch Marner, which is sad to me. He's such a fun player to watch when he's doing Mitch Marner things. Like, so many great moments of this past 8 years have been on Mitch Marner's stick, and I think I'm just close the book on the guy. Can't get it done in the playoffs. He's not big enough. He relies too much on having space, and there's no space in the playoffs. He can't stand up when it's a big moment like a Game 7 or a Game 1 through 6. He just can't do it.
At least he didn't get any puck over
I'll
glass
argue-
penalties.
I'll argue, though, John Tavares is also not a playoff performer.
I mean,
He's closed out a couple series.
Elliot Friedman, I thought, said it well after the game 6. William Nylander comes in, scores 2 goals, and we're over here crying about how happy we are. And Elliot's like, William Nylander is paid to score goals, and he did what his job is. And John Tavares did a good job this series of shutting down the opposition, but that's not what he's paid to do. He's paid $11 million to score big goals and to play big minutes. David Kampf is paid to do that. Connor Dewar is paid to do that. Pontus Holmberg is paid to shut down the opposition. And
no, but hold on, Steven, because we've seen these series against Boston, not this year, but previous years, where Patrice Bergeron just shuts down Auston Matthews, and they should rename trophies after that guy because he was so good at being a defensive forward, and he was paid handsomely at the time. Actually, I think he was rather underpaid, but he was one of the core leaders of their team, and his main role was not scoring goals or producing offense, although he was good at that too. It was shutting down the other team's top guys. So if you look at John Tavares and you see at the end of the series, the John Tavares line and the David Pastrnak line both were a wash, you could only look at that as a win. Only look at that as a win. So I say, who cares? Tavares did not have a 5-on-5 goal if Pastrnak also was not a direct contributor in this series, which was absolutely partially.
But it's not a direct. It's not a direct Pastrnak and John Tavares line or opposition, because the Pastrnak line is Pastrnak. It's Pastrnak and whoever the heck. The John Tavares line is John Tavares, William Nylander, Matthew Nyes, guys who again are paid
Matthew
to score
Nyes
goals.
Was one of our best players in this series. Would you not agree? That line was still good.
Sure.
It wasn't Nyes doing it by himself out there. It was Tavares to Nyes that got the OT winner that got us this far. That line was fine. If you want to complain about something, complain about Marner, you complain about the power play.
Jake DeBrusk had more playoff goals in this series than John Tavares has in probably the last 2 years.
In a series like this, you can't just look at how many goals do they have. That's how good they are, because it's so much of just was the goalie in position? Did it go off a weird tip? He had one goal go off Tyler Bertuzzi's knee. What is Bertuzzi all of a sudden way better in this series because his knee was in the right place? Part of it is just lucky bounces. You need to look at what goes on between the plays and both ends of the ice and the whole picture. And Tavares was fine, big picture stuff this series. We didn't lose because John Tavares underperformed.
He's a piece of it, though.
I don't think so.
I mean, once again, I would say we lost because we had the second best goalie in net. I don't care that's only 2 goals. Second best goalie.
I don't know. Wait, you're putting that game 7 on Samsonov? Or are you saying for the first 4 games of the series?
I don't know. Look at both. Last game, he let in 2 goals. That was enough to sink us. That's the last time we'll see him in the Leaf uniforms. It doesn't even matter.
But guys, we lost because we've now scored 2 or fewer goals in 6 straight elimination games.
So you're right.
That's what it is.
Would you not agree that for the past 3 games, the game plan going in was to score 2 goals and win the game? That was what the Leafs were trying to do. It's not like they were trying to score 4 or 5 goals and they failed in that task. They had the game.
It sounds like we should fire whoever came up with that.
I mean, you're not wrong, Tim, but I'm just saying, the game plan was to play super stingy, to not take risks offensively and just try to capitalize on the Bruins' mistakes. And it worked in Game 5. We loved them for it. It worked in Game 6. We loved them for it. It almost worked in Game 7. And we would have loved them for it. But when you rely on these lucky bounces, eventually one's just not going to go your way. And they got a lucky bounce off the end boards and Pastrnak ends it.
But it felt like it worked. It was the only strategy that they could do, because when the Leafs score first, I'm like, this is amazing. Then Boston scores, and in my mind, I'm like, that's it. I don't think the Leafs have 2 goals in them, because they didn't the whole series. Because there just wasn't enough guys. They're so I guess kudos to the Leafs for looking in the mirror and finally realizing we're not a team that's going to be able to score 5 and play like we're going to try to score 5 here. We can only attempt to score our 2, and hopefully we get there. They got 50% of the way, and it wasn't enough. And that's been the case all the series we've lost is, I mean, I guess that's every hockey game is because you don't score more goals than your opponent, right? But like specifically, so many fewer than they score in the regular season. Something's got to change. We can debate what personnel can change, like on the actual roster, but I don't think we can debate that it has to be the head coach. I just hope it's not some old fart that like just got fired 3 days ago. It'll be the 18th firing of head coaches in the NHL this season.
There's some big name coaches out there that are available for pickup. Rod Brindamore, John Cooper, like.
Well, Cooper's not available yet.
Neither is
No, they're
Brindamore.
both. They're not under contract next season. That's what I'm saying. Like they're both.
Cooper's not either.
No, he's not. So like, there's some good coaches out there that we could try and target, but I don't know. Like it didn't work with Babcock. It didn't work with Keefe. Like at one point, you just say like it's not the coach, it's these players. Like I don't know. Riley never
Maybe
showed
it's
up.
the fans' fault. It's us. We're the problem.
I don't know. I don't know how you can say that a 70-goal man. I guess it's a lot more than just the fact like he was missing games, and it's just I call the Leafs roster a Lamborghini because it's for the same reasons that if they fire Keefe and bring in the new guy, well, the reason we're going to get excited is because the Leafs do have like a talented roster of desirable players. Like it's the same reason why, Tim, you're worried about losing Mitch Marner for nothing because he's worth something. Leafs have so many guys that are worth something that but it's not like an argument. Like when the Leafs go into so many of these playoff matchups, we look at the rosters and we're like, oh, Leafs roster's better, but they suck. Like, they just suck.
Don't get it done once again.
It's I don't know. And I like once the overtime started, I really was not feeling good. I was not feeling
Well, even
like
the last 5 minutes of the game,
Swayman.
you could just tell Sammy was so rattled. Like he was just done. Just done. It would only matter of time.
Yep.
And
Leafs were
didn't get it
tired.
done.
Morgan Riley looked tired when that Bergeron blows past him to score that goal. Like I don't know. That's part of it. And did I say Bergeron? You brought Bergeron up. It's Pasternak. I was I don't know. Lots of memories going on tonight. Because we're talking about over a decade now of
Add it to the list of
dealing
scars.
with the Boston Bruins specifically, though, right? I mean, it's a joke. I can't believe I can't believe it went this way.
Well, there's
again.
gonna be like regardless, like things like changing the coach. That's optional. Like they're under contract, so we could keep him. Marner technically is under his full no move, so like we could be keeping him. But there's gonna be big changeover regardless. Like tons of guys on expiring deals here: Bertuzzi, Domi, Samsonov, Brody. Like you go down the list, and there's going to be lots of changes, lots of cap space for Brad to work with. It'll be interesting to see who he re-signs here and who he gives some of that money to. Hopefully there's no more Klingbergs coming our way. Thank goodness we have Ryan Reeves signed for another 2 years. He came up big for us this game. And
Oh, yeah, he did a real good job of those high fives at the beginning of the game. Almost pushing.
That's right.
I forgot about John Klingberg.
Viewers will have to tune in the next Leafcast episode in 2 months when we're maybe in a better headspace to talk about the offseason.
No, we're going to pod, assuming Sheldon Keefe is fired soon. We'll be on the mic.
No, that's not
We'll
nice.
be podding in October with Sheldon Keefe as the head coach. Mark my words, he's not getting fired.
No way. If Sheldon Keefe is the head coach in October, I'm not coming back to Leafscast.
Yeah, Tim, what do you want to do in October if Sheldon Keefe's the head coach? You want to start a side project, maybe just like just share our thoughts?
No, I'm going to become you want to start a curling podcast? Maybe that's more exciting than this loser team. Golf is great.
We don't deserve this. What did we do to deserve this sadness?
We
were born.
A lot of it goes back to Tim. I think if Tim doesn't get into the Maple Leafs, I'm not sure
That
I
is
get
fair.
into
You
the
are
Maple
my big
Leafs.
brother, Tim. I think this comes down to you.
I blame Tim for a lot of this. We could go all the way back to, grandparents deciding to, immigrate in Canada.
No, they did that for Tim. That one's on Tim as well.
Fort Lauderdale. Okay, so we're gonna blame
Yeah,
Tim for
this
that one
one's on
too.
Tim.
I don't know. I mean, and you know what? You know what? Like, I say it. I get older and I say it like that. I'm not gonna let the Leafs like these playoff games dictate my mood as much as they have in the past. And I'm so addicted to sports, but nothing gets me off the couch like a Maple Leafs game does, and specifically a Maple Leafs playoff game. So I don't know that I would like trade the passion for like just feeling nothing, but I mean it's a rough ride. Like I guess this is better than just having a terrible team again, right? I mean, like when I think of like pre 2013, I mean, it was dark
Hmm.
days of just the Leafs had made the playoffs in 9 years, and it's just like I love hockey, but I hate it, So there's positives to this, right? But and it's also statistically pretty remarkable that the Leafs have failed to come up as many years in a row as they have. Like, just it's not normal for so many other teams.
Nope.
So that's
Well,
why
I'm
I'm so
glad
desperate
we're
for.
we're entertaining to 30 other teams, or no, 31. I don't know how many teams. They all enjoy our misery. They'll get a good laugh out of this laughing stock of a team that Brad's put together and this clown performance they put together. Give a oh ho ho ho, having such a good time.
Mm.
So
I can't believe it's over. I would have loved more games. I know, Rye, you say like, oh, Leafs are gonna, you know, eat it against like the Panthers and stuff. Like I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers like the Boston looks completely different. The Panthers can light them up for 6 goals a game or something like. You know what I
That
mean? Like
that
it's
will
just
be frustrating when the Panthers score 5 or 6 goals against
I
Swayman.
I feel like that's what's going to
Yeah.
happen. Boston was not what they were in this playoff series in the regular season, just like the Leafs weren't either, right? Boston was a middle of the road penalty kill team, the middle of the road power
Hmm.
play team. They lost like 15 overtime games. Like, they were a great team at the beginning of the season, but they're not the one seed. You know what's frustrating too? We talk about all these years in a row that we've made the playoffs, da 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 da, like similar cast of opponents and stuff. The Leafs finish second or third seed every single year too.
because we
Like,
suck.
but Florida can go from nothing to being the one seed twice now or something like that, right? And here's us again. Like we should be striving for more. We should be growing, right? The Rangers won the President's Trophy this year,
Yep.
and who won the Dallas won the West, and like it's the Leafs where it's a low floor or a high floor and a low ceiling, and I would love something that looked different.
Well, it
I would
will
love
look
something that looked
different
different.
next year, and it might not be the changes you're hoping for, but there still will be changes. There are every year, and we'll see what happens this
We'll see how,
offseason. We'll see if Brad ends up doing
There's
Marner's laundry when he negotiates his contract, and
We'll see how the cycle goes. At what point will we start like building up hope again for then the Leafs to then crush us next year?
mm-hmm.
So it's inevitable. It's the cycle. But right now,
it's
bottom of the
funny
cycle.
because there's a lot of these UFAs that you talk about, Ryan, that like I look at saying I want to bring back, and then so many guys that are going to be here on contracts long term that I don't want. Like I want a new look. I want a new look. I want to win. I'm so sick of this.
All right, I think we get out of here.
Um,
We're just being sad Leaf fans now.
All right.
I mean, what do we say? Tim, you look disheveled, by the way.
Great.
Tim, you look like the hair is everywhere. Like, just like you've been through it.
Have been through it. I've lost like 5 years
man.
of my life with this stupid team in the past 3 days.
All right.
Highs and the
Well,
lows.
we'll be back with another pod
Well-
when Tim finds a comb, and we'll see how that goes.
Thank you to all the listeners. Thank you to everybody who tuned in, watched on YouTube, listened to the pod, commented, interacted with us. We appreciate you guys. And, we all hope for a better Maple Leaf season next year. Boys, it was great getting to spend so much time with you the last week or so. Love you guys. And till the next time you hear from us, we'll have lots to talk about. But for now, this is the Leafscast signing off. for the end of the 2023-2024 season.